Hey, you all, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome back to the No-Till Market Garden Podcast Summer Shorts series, where we are getting super nerdy details on specific subjects all summer long, or winter if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, while we gear up for Season 3 of the podcast in October. I think it's October. We have a great show for you today with Vera Fabian, who is back from 10 Mothers Farm. Jackson got on the line with her to chat about CSAs, and the conversation is super enlightening, especially at a time when a lot of growers are wading into the CSA world for the first time. Jackson and Vera talk about delivery management, CSA design, using Farm Ego, like FARMIGO. They talk about buying in crops, and even what the CSA model may look like next year in an economy that could very likely be, what's a delicate word here? Poop. And like all of our summer shorts, this episode is brought to you by you, our beloved patrons at patreon.com/farmerjesse. Because of your support, we can afford putting the extra time into these little shorts this year, and our goal is to get that page up to $2,500 by the fall to be able to accompany the podcast with more video content. Anyway, consider kicking in a couple bucks over at patreon.com/farmerjesse if this work brings you value. And as a little incentive, at certain levels, or if you just bump up your patronage from one level to another, or even just $1, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs this week to Travis and Heidi of Arcadia Acres, Michael Burton, JM Fortier, who just launched Growers.co, Growers & Co. You should go check that out. And to reward some of our longtime supporters here who have been with us since the second month I had the Patreon page up almost 2 years ago. Give them a shout out too. Alora Fernandez, Dean and Jennifer Mullis of Laughing Owl Farm, Jackson Roulette, Anthony Smith, and Jim Schultz. Huge thanks to all of our show supporters, and enough from me. Let's dive right into this amazing conversation between Jackson Roulette of Stonehouse Market Farm and my partner here at NoTillGrowers.com, and Vera Fabian of 10 Mothers.
Vera Fabian, thank you for taking time out of the really busy growing season, especially under all of the circumstances that we're going through right now, to talk about CSAs. I think it's important that we bring CSAs back into the discussion because I feel like a lot of people are moving to CSAs right now or considering them for the long term. So thanks for taking time out of the growing season to talk to us.
Of course, we're happy to be included and hope we can offer some guidance.
Yeah. Now, you were on last season, a wonderful episode, but if you could give us a quick update and reacquaint us with your farm, where you're at, how much land you're cultivating, how long is your growing season, and how many folks are working there with you.
Sure. So we're 10 Mothers Farm, and we are in our 5th year. We farm about 1 acre, like actual bed space. A lot of people, I think, would go a little bit bigger than that if you included like paths, but actual bed space is about 1 acre. And this year there are 3.5 of us, like full-time equivalents, including, me and Gordon. It's me, Gordon, Luke, and then we brought on Justin, who he actually lost his job at a restaurant, so we hired him for an extra day, and I feel like we're moving towards being 4 people. We'll see if we can swing that this year. And interestingly, in the past, basically we started out thinking we would do CSA and restaurants, and basically each year, based on demand, kind of increased the CSA, and so basically the portion of the business that restaurants took kind of got smaller each year as the demand for the CSA grew. And this year we sold 180 shares before COVID hit. And we had already, basically over the winter, we had decided to scale back restaurant sales. We just felt like there was the demand for the CSA, that it got a better dollar per bunch through the CSA, and restaurant for a farm of our size, we're so small and we need every foot to count. And for restaurant sales were just a little too inconsistent to really focus on them. And so we had talked to a few of our key restaurants to kind of figure out how we could continue a relationship with them. But we had really kind of started to get out of restaurants and focus more on the CSA. So we sold 180 shares, and then COVID hit and the restaurants closed, and we were like, well, we will have a little bit of extra food. And I'm sure like so many of you guys, like our wait list got kind of out of hand really quickly. There was so many people looking for CSA suddenly. So we had a huge wait list, and we thought about just adding people off the wait list. But then there's this program through the CFSA organization that is basically they're buying farm boxes from farms and then donating them to out-of-work restaurant workers. And so we're doing that. We're packing 20 boxes a week for Lantern, like dear friends of ours and longtime restaurant customer. So I guess we're technically at 201 boxes a week going out. Yeah. And I guess we are also selling a little bit of excess. Like one of the things I'm sure everyone who has a CSA knows, like it's really, from week to week, we do have a little bit of excess. It's hard to get it exact. So we have a little excess that we're selling to a friend who has a farm stand, to the restaurants that are still doing takeout. Tomorrow we're going to donate a bunch of stuff. So there's, 201 boxes and then plus a little extra on the side.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, you say small farm, but 200 share equivalents off of an acre is amazing work. And we could have an entire other conversation about hiring a former restaurant worker. That's amazing that you did that. But when you think of meaningful, gainful employment, especially in a food industry, under the circumstances that we have now, my mind goes to small farms would be wonderful places to expand some employment.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Especially
I know.
if you're interested in food.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's great. So just to give it a little more detail about what size share do you offer, and what does that box look like roughly week to week?
Yeah, so our goal is to get 7 items in each box, and we hit that goal. I mean, I would say that for the most part, customers wind up getting a little bit more than what they paid for. Like whenever we have the abundance, we try to share that with them within reason. We can go into that later, but we try not to overwhelm them. I think that's an important piece. So yeah, they generally get about 7 items a week, and I think sort of the way we see the box and trying to keep customers interested and I guess we really approach it like we used to be in a CSA before we were farmers, and we try to approach it as what would I want every week if I was getting a box. And so we break it down into sort of salad greens, cooking greens, sort of the staple crops, all the alliums, and then rock stars, things like broccoli and tomatoes, that sort of thing. So we try to have a nice mix of all of those different types of vegetables in there so that they're not getting 5 different kinds of salad greens in 1 week or, just a bunch of different alliums. We try to have it be a nice mix.
Sure. Yeah, that's something that we took with us into starting a CSA was how do we cook? Because we cook at home a lot. And that was one of the reasons why we wanted to start a CSA, is to encourage people to cook at home more often.
Totally.
And so it's considering our family size and how we cook, what do we want in a box, and hitting those sort of pillars of diversity and mixing it up.
Yeah.
I think is really
I think
important.
that's this is a huge topic, but I think so many people, when they come to visit our farm, they're CSA doesn't really feel like the best fit for a market garden. You don't have a lot of space for growing, the diversity of crops that you have to have when you're a CSA farm. But I think that, every year it's kind of changed a little bit. This is getting more into the crop planning side of things, but basically every fall we survey our members, and in the we try to keep it very short so that more people fill it out, but in it is literally a list of almost everything that we have, every vegetable that we've given them. And we ask them, did you get this just the right amount? Did you not get enough? Would you like more, or did you get too much of it? And that way we can see by vegetable, what did people want more of? What did people want less of? What was exactly right? And so exciting from year to year to like, and then we use that to make our sales projections for the next year and to make our crop plan. And it's so exciting each year to kind of like get closer to what we feel like our customers are looking for in the way of variety. And there are some things that like don't make sense. Like we don't grow potatoes because the numbers just wouldn't work for us. And we are looking to buy those in from a neighboring farm. And I think that's a great option. But then there are some things that like maybe don't make a ton of sense, but we grow anyway, like sweet potatoes. We love growing them. So I think it's just like somewhat up to, it's a personal choice.
Yeah, and I think the CSA also provides an opportunity. Some people maybe get stuck on their basket has to be a particular dollar value equivalent to purchasing these items at a market, but when you start to remove maybe some of those constraints from those particular vegetables, say if it's just 7 vegetables a week, you have a little bit more room to play with sort of the dollar value that's coming out of a bed. There's another value attached to it, like broccoli for us. If we were to say that we're doing this many dollars in a bed of broccoli, it doesn't look so appealing, but when our CSA members report, we love getting broccoli as often as possible, maybe in those terms, broccoli is more valuable than an extra bed of lettuce or whatever the case may be.
Exactly. I think that's a great way of looking at it. And like broccoli is actually a good example of that for us. Like our second year, we thought like we weren't going to grow broccoli again. And it turns out that people really wanted it and we've figured out how to make it work and it feels totally worth it now.
And another thing you brought up was buying things in from other farms. I think a CSA on a market garden scale, like you said, you've got to make some decisions on what to grow and what not to grow. But then that gives you the opportunity to work together with other farms and make some relationships that work for both of you so that not every farm has to grow 50 different varieties of produce. You can sort of focus on what you do well at and then help another farm and open up another market stream for them.
Totally. I mean, I love seeing how that's happening with so many farms right now, like new partnerships forming and figuring out how to get more of people's diets to them through a CSA share. And I feel like our customers, as long as I think that there is a point at which you can like lose your integrity as a CSA farm if you're buying in too much stuff. But I think, every now and then, and in like, as long as you're clear with your customers, like this is the farm it's from, we share similar, growing practices, and I think it's a great option.
For sure, and I feel like a little bit goes a long way. CSA members may appreciate that. They see that spirit of cooperation within the local food system and between farms even.
Totally.
I know we shoot for about between 80 and 85% comes off of our farm, but we love buying from other farms as well.
Nice.
So speaking of communicating with members, so say you have reached a CSA member and they're interested. Walk us through the process of signing them up, and how do you manage the CSA membership on the back end? Do you use management software? Is it pen and paper? What does that look like on 10 Mothers Farm?
Yeah, so I think that starting out, I think we definitely wanted to sort of be like the CSA of the new age. Like we wanted it to be, we saw how with a CSA you're reaching a slightly different customer base than like farmers market customers, because those folks are going to go to the farmers market. And so we wanted it to reach people who maybe are like too busy to go to the market or, I don't know, all the reasons, but we wanted it to be really like accessible. And also because it was just 2 of us at the beginning and like I was working another job, we needed it to be as streamlined and like low maintenance on our end. So we put it all online. So, I think having a good website is key. People can get a lot of their questions answered off of our website so that they aren't quick to email us with questions. and they can sign up on the website. And basically, once they're signed up, we chose to go with FarmiGo as our CSA management software, mostly because we knew we wanted our boxes to be customizable. I think that we saw from our experience working on CSA farms, we saw how a lot of customers just couldn't handle not having that choice. If you really dislike cucumbers and you get cucumbers for 8 weeks in a row, you probably maybe won't want to be in that CSA again the next year. So I think we saw that as one of the biggest limiting factors, and we knew that customizing boxes could be really complicated, and so we wanted to figure out a way to have it be possible. And FarmiGo really felt like it was affordable and would make the customization possible. So basically the way that works is every week on Friday we send out our weekly newsletter, and in the newsletter it has a list of what's going in sort of the standard box for the coming week, and it has a link to our online farm store. And in the farm store, through FarmiGo, we're able to say we have, these are all of the other vegetables that are also harvested at this time. And this is how many bunches of, kale we have that you can swap in instead of your cucumbers that you don't want. So it's pretty cool to watch. Some of our members definitely wait until 3 p.m. on Friday when the store is open, and everyone swoops in and gets, snags the prized pints of sungold or whatever it is that everybody wants that week. And so people who want to swap can swap to their heart's content, and people who don't want to swap, we definitely have members who never swapped. They just want to not have to think about it and get the box that we pack for them. So FarmiGo has been great for the customized boxes. I think it makes it, and then basically so people can go in over the weekend, swap in and out, and then the next week when it comes time to harvest, we can go in and print our harvest list based on what people swapped in and out. We can go in later in the week, or I guess we do Tuesday and Thursday. We do 2 days of CSA delivery. So twice a week we can go in and use FarmiGo to generate our labels. So it's I think when we were starting out, it sounded very complicated, but now it's amazingly streamlined. We can just go in, create a spreadsheet of what everybody swapped in and out, and then take that to Avery, the label company, on their website. They have a program where you can just transfer your spreadsheet and print the labels, and then each box gets a label with what goes in it and which member it is. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that's one of the reticence that some people have in using maybe FarmiGo, Tend, Barn to Door, Harvey. There is I know we have it to some extent, a fear of this is going to make the process more complicated, or I'm going to spend too much time in front of a computer. But to add the ability for members to customize shares, that's really going to set the CSA apart, and maybe spending a little time in front of a computer, but then minimizing that time as much as possible so that you're out in the field harvesting or making better decisions than regenerating spreadsheets over and over and over from scratch.
Totally, yeah. And it is, it definitely is not as efficient as just packing exactly the same box over and over again. To this day, you would think that we have gotten better at it, but every week we make a mistake and somebody packs a box with one item missing and we have to go back. Those things are all true, but like you were saying, we see that as worth it to keep our customers happy. So
yeah, and that's something.
It's not for everyone, but if you want, if I feel this is why I do think that CSAs, and particularly customized CSA, would drive some people up the wall. But I think that if you, for the right person, it's a great opportunity.
Right, and it's going to bring ultimately more people into the CSA fold.
Yeah.
It's going to get more people interested and more of the eating population just attached to farms.
Yeah.
We personally have folks who absolutely would love to be a part of our CSA but have dietary restrictions.
Yeah.
And our method of providing choice was a swap table because 100% of our drop-offs were at a congrual location where all of the members would meet that day, and then they swap out what they wanted. Well, now we've moved completely to delivery and pre-bagged orders, and so we're trying to wrap our heads around how do we go back to offering that choice that so many of our members loved, and still, maintain these guidelines that we're probably going to have to be living with for a little while.
Yeah.
So that management software is definitely something that we're looking into ourselves. So it was great to hear your take on it. Speaking of logistics, you all have a lot of CA drops, it looks like, from your website. How do you all manage the logistics of moving that many shares to so many locations? So say you've already packed your orders, and we've got a great video of you all actually packing orders, your CSA table, which is wonderful. We implemented that to some extent on our farm, and it sped up box packing by 50% at least.
Excellent.
Yeah, that was a good one. So we'll put that up in the show notes so people can see that if they hadn't. But once the boxes are packed and ready to go out the door, what does it look like when those roll off the farm?
So, like I said, we have 2 different days. We've got, this year we have, 12 pickup locations, including the farm. And so there's a lot, but divided between the 2 days, it's not insane. And we again, like when we were starting out, we knew we weren't going to have the time to staff our pickup sites, even though I kind of wanted to because I love getting to meet our customers face to face. But we knew we weren't going to have the time to do that. And so we decided to go the route of finding members who were willing to host a pickup site, usually on their front porch. And so basically, and we give our site hosts a discount on their shares as sort of an incentive and like a thank you gift for, letting us use their porch. And I do the deliveries. Basically, like we create each week when we say at the same time when I'm doing the labels for the boxes, I also print like a drop sheet that has, the names and the amount of boxes, and I use that as like my double check so that way at each pickup site I know I've got the right number of boxes. And we also we've partnered with a farm to do flour shares and grain shares. So depending on the week, it gets a little more complicated. But I just drop the boxes off on the porch and leave the drop sheet for everyone to check also, and go to the next pickup site. And that way it goes pretty quickly. This year, I'm trying to think of what changes we had to make for coronavirus. I think, we basically let our members know to social distance at their pickup site, to please try to wear a mask if there's other people around. We have bottles of sanitizing solution at each pickup site. We are packing our shares into box liners, compostable box liners, which we don't love. It definitely has added to our packaging expenses, and it's more plastic, even if it's compostable. I don't trust how green it is. So it is more packaging, but it felt like a safety measure that we could take, and that way we can still reuse boxes. So basically, members come, pick up their vegetables, and unfold their empty box and leave the box behind. And then the following week, I come back with new boxes and take the old boxes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes. And personally, we're getting to a point where we're doing home delivery because that was just the most straightforward option that we came across in the beginning of changing our CSA dynamic in response to COVID. But once you start getting up to 20 and 30 deliveries a day, even if they're in close proximity, that's an entire day on the road. And we're starting to get to the upper limits of that. So we're also thinking, well, what are some other ways that we can add more members? Because we do have a CSA waiting list, and particularly our market, it's a wonderful market, but we're not seeing the traffic that we usually do this time of year in response to COVID. So how can we shift more of our focus to our CSA membership, but still make it sustainable so that we're not in the delivery vehicle more than we need to be reasonably?
I mean, we definitely thought about, like, ideally, I would say our pickup sites have anywhere from like 12 to 25 boxes, and it's harder to find pickup locations that can handle like 20 or 25 boxes, but that's what we're hoping to be able to, you know, cut back on the number of locations and have more locations that can handle more boxes, just to cut back on all of that.
And I assume that the members have a certain pickup window then to pick up off of those sites.
Yeah, it's usually like somewhere between 3 and 7. And it's kind of up to the host. Like, we try to, you know, really empower the host to like do what feels good to them. Like, if somebody hasn't picked up their box at 7, those vegetables belong to the host. And like, we do give our host a list of their members' contact info, and if they want to text a member and be like, hey, I've got your vegetables, great. And if that's too much for them, like, they can give those vegetables away. They can keep them themselves.
Well, and that's another great way to include your CSA members to bring the community back into the CSA, because that was another criticism, was where CSAs were going were just box subscription shares, which is fine, but they didn't have that original element of community, and that seems like a great way to start bringing more of those members closer to the farm in spirit, even if not to the farm, as being participating members instead of somebody that just gets a box every week.
Totally. I mean, I think our site hosts are like some of our most dedicated members. They're like totally on board. They generally do feel happy to, you know, get in touch with someone if they didn't pick up. And yeah, they definitely are like heavily invested.
Man, that's great. It's great to have that network, especially right now.
Yeah.
A few more questions. One, how do you communicate with your CSA members in general? And then what are some things that you've learned and how to keep them connected to what's going on the farm, especially during times where they maybe don't feel comfortable coming to the farm when they normally would?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main one is our newsletter. The newsletter is every week, and we put a lot of energy into it. I like, and so it always has pictures of the farm and us. It always has sort of like cooking inspiration, links to recipes, ideas for like meals you might be able to make with different vegetables that week. And then I try to like have there be some personal stuff in there about us and what our days are like. And that way the newsletter can serve as like a window into the farm and like what decisions we're making and what challenges we're facing. And, you know, that way we definitely have members. Like in the past, this year we haven't been able to, but in the past we've always had events for members to come out to the farm. But there are definitely folks who've been with us for the last several years who have never come out here. But I think that they can still feel, you know, in touch with, and yeah, people who I've never met, which is wild, and I would love to meet them. But in the meantime, I think the newsletter is really like a lifeline between us and our members. And then, you know, social media too. Some of our members definitely follow us closely, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram, and get a slightly different, you know, window into the farm that way. And yeah, and then, I mean, it's ironic, right? Like this winter, I was trying to think of more ways, like, I think we really love having people out here in person, and we were trying to think of more ways to do that, which, of course, are all on hold for the time being, and we'll see what that looks like. But I'm grateful that the newsletter, you know, events do take a lot of time and energy that we often don't have, and the newsletter feels like a way, you know, whether we have 30 members or 200, like, we still have to write that newsletter. And so it's kind of in a, I don't know, yeah, it makes it easy to expand the CSA because we're already putting the effort into our email communication. Does that make sense?
Right, and I don't want to see it only in terms of maybe a trade-off that you can cash in on. But I remember there was a year in particular, we spend an hour on our newsletter every week and send it out. And you can think, you know, well, maybe people aren't reading it, or maybe they're glossing over it, maybe some information is not getting through, or maybe it's even a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
And when things are going well, people are clicking through, and we can see a lot of people really love clicking on recipe links. We found that that's the number one click-through. Mm-hmm. But then when something bad happens, or when something unexpected happens, or maybe you need a little bit of help, I know that just this past season, we had an issue buying in compost because there's an influx of folks getting into gardening again, or for the first time. And we were having trouble finding local compost. And I had a not insignificant number of our CSA members send us emails saying, hey, you know, we don't have much, but we've got some. We could bring it,
that's amazing.
Drop it off at your farm. And it's like, that's great. You know, one, it shows that they're reading, but two, it shows that, you know, they're with us through the good and the bad. Or maybe if there's a crop failure, we'll get a message from some folks that's like, it's all right if we don't have cucumbers for a little while. Like, we understand. So it definitely, when times are good, that's when you send newsletters. And then when times are bad or tough, or if there's a change, they're used to reading and getting a newsletter every week, and are used to that level of connection with your farm.
Yeah, I think it's a real mix of, I mean, and I think if you think, like, we do a lot of sort of putting ourselves into our CSA members' shoes, and I feel like people join CSAs for a couple, I mean, perhaps more than a couple of reasons, but I feel like the main couple of reasons that I know of are the desire to support, you know, small-scale, sustainable farmers in their community. And the second one is that they want to, like, learn how to cook and eat better and eat, you know, more fresh vegetables, and, you know, for whether it's for their health or whether it's because they like to cook and they want to try new things. And so I feel like the newsletter really can serve both of those. It can make people feel connected to the farm and see the impact that they're having. And then it also can, like, really help people learn how to cook with and eat seasonally. So that's sort of what we focus on.
Yeah, and it helps that it appears that you and Gordon are amazing cooks too. I know you all have a lot of experience with that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, yes, we do love to cook and eat well, and that's got into this. And so it's definitely, like, just something that we love sharing with folks.
And to that, speaking to that transparency and showing them what it's like, you all have even posted your annual budget on your website for people to see.
Yeah. So that, I feel like that's a great, and that was actually inspired by a no-till podcast. Is it Felix, the guy in Germany?
Yes, yeah, Felix.
So that episode, if you haven't listened to it, you guys listen to it. It is very inspiring because he has sort of taken the concept of a CSA to, and it seems like maybe there's a few other farms in Europe that are doing this too, to a different level where it's like when you become a member, you're not just becoming a member for a box of vegetables, you're becoming a member almost the way you would join, like, a members-only co-op, you know? Like, you have more say in the decisions that the farm's making, and like you should just listen to the episode. But basically he says, like, this is how much I need my salary to be, and this is how much we need to spend on compost, and then that is what determines, what a membership costs. Or I think maybe for him it's even just people start pitching in dollars until they reach the budget that they need. I don't remember the details, but it's basically, we were like, that is a fascinating concept. Like, let's see what we can do with it. And what it did was it made us realize we needed to raise our price for a pair. I think that, kind of what we've just been talking about, like this relationship with our members is really adding value to the vegetables. Like, you aren't just getting a box of 7 vegetables in it. You're getting education. You're getting, a sense of really taking part in the work of, like, caring for this piece of land and turning it into a thriving ecosystem and, supporting local economy. And you're getting your vegetables delivered to your neighborhood. And there's, like, all these things that take time and energy, but for some reason as farmers, like, we don't put a value on that time and energy. And instead we're like, no, you just are going to pay for the vegetables. So I think that for us, we were like, wow, we really could ask for our members to, like, pitch in a little bit more to help cover some of those, like, non-tangible but important things that they're getting out of being a member. And so we sent the budget to our members and said, like, here's what everything costs and here's what we're paying ourselves. And I think probably some of our members, like, read it and some of them maybe didn't, but we got some notes from people being like, this is amazing, like, thank you so much for sharing that. And, like, multiple people were like, you should charge more, you're not paying yourselves enough. Like, I think it just gave people more understanding about the economic challenges of being a farmer the way that we farm. And it's exciting. I kind of want to explore more with that, and I actually, Felix and I emailed about it. He was very helpful. And we've thought about doing sort of like a pay what you can model. I know some CSAs have done that, because if we're going to raise our price, like, we definitely don't want that to mean that, like, members leave because they can't afford it. So there's room to grow there, but I think that this is one of the things I love about the CSA, is that it kind of thinks a little bit differently. Instead of it just being this, like, transactional exchange of money, it's definitely, like, going a little deeper and having a more thoughtful relationship between the customer and the grower. And I think that there are lots of possibilities for that as we go forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I recall one year we took the average member price, and any time we spent money on maybe compost or amendments or I believe fixing the BCS, I did an experiment where I would say, this purchase was brought to you by the CSA member. These are the things that you all are providing for us.
That's great.
And these are the quality of the amendments. We're buying these amendments because they are they are the least impactful on our soil. They will actually build soil over time, and these are wonderful things, and we're going to start attaching your names to it. I didn't finish it out. I wish I would have, but it would be interesting to take your CSA member names and attach them to, thank you for this and thank you for that.
Yeah, I love that idea.
But you definitely wouldn't want to leave anybody out either. So, and real quick, if I've got you for a few more minutes, so it seems like this COVID crisis or this situation has renewed the general public's interest in not only supporting local farms, but CSAs. I know every CSA farm that I'm aware of has a wait list. And are trying to figure out how to navigate the CSA space moving forward. How do you feel, I guess, either in particular about your CSA or about CSAs in general, in the future, say the next 6 months, a year, 18 months, given the possible economic ramifications of the situation that we're in now?
Like, sorry, what exactly is the question?
When I think about my farm personally, so we have people on a wait list, or we've been directing people to other CSAs who may have a few more openings than we do. And that's great now. One of the things that is in the back of my mind is the CSA going to be affordable for a lot of these people in 6 months or a year? And I guess everybody's thinking that with every business.
No, I have definitely been thinking about that too. I think, we all have, hopefully. I think it's a really important question to ask, and I think that's part of why, we were thinking about this before, and now more than ever, how to make a CSA feel accessible to people with lower incomes, or with, who are out of work. And I think that, I just keep coming back to a model in which our members who have the means might be able to pay a little bit more and that would help subsidize the cost for people who have lower incomes. Just because, I don't really see any other way. Burden of keeping our prices low can't fall on us. We are already barely able to make a living doing this, and so it's got to be shared by our customer base. And I think we just sort of need to think through how that would be structured and how we would communicate with people about it. But I feel like that feels sort of like the thing that I'm most excited about. And we've actually told our members, hey, we know some of you have lost your jobs, let us know. And we actually offer people the option to pay in installments. So some of our members pay everything up front, but that is also a barrier to entry for a lot of CSA folks. So we let people pay in installments if that's better for them. And especially for the people who pay in installments, we check in with them every time before we cash their check, deposit their check. We're hey, is it okay? And we've said to people, to all of our members, if at any time, the CSA feels like a stress for you financially right now, let us know and we'll figure something out. And so I think that I see the CSA as sort of part of why it's so resilient is this flexibility, that we have the trust of our members, and that I do feel like we could go to our membership and say some people are struggling to pay the full price. Would you be willing to pitch in whatever amount you can to help cover that cost? And I have a feeling that maybe people would do it. So that's sort of what I'm hoping. But I also think, I guess I also would love to look into, I know there are CSAs who do postage stamps, and I know it's a complicated process, but I've always wanted to figure that out. And I hope that there are going to be more programs kind of like the one we're participating in with the restaurant employees through CFSA, where, nonprofits or even the government, basically are buying food from local farms to then donate or sell at a much reduced price. I feel like that could be, and it's such a win-win. It's you're supporting local farms and you're giving people good food. So I'm hoping that we'll see lots of creative solutions, but time will tell.
Yeah. Well, definitely moving the CSA from an additional farm enterprise to the central focus of your farm allows you to dedicate more personal resources to solutions like that. and put more time and energy to connecting with members on a personal basis to reach out to them in that way, as opposed to if you've got many different outlets, it might not afford you the time and the opportunity to reach individual members in that way.
Yep. Yeah, but it's definitely a concern. I'm sure you see this, it feels like when people hit a rough patch, their food budget is often the first thing to go,
Right.
And so it's definitely something I think we should all be thinking about and trying to figure out ways that we can, keep getting good food to people.
Absolutely. Did we go over why you started doing CSA in the first place?
Yeah, we kind of came into it backwards. We had assumed we would be a market farm, and the best farmers markets in our area were totally full. They were not looking for any other vegetable vendors, and so we were like, oh, I guess it's CSA, and turns out it's been a great fit. And I think, another thing that I really love about the CSA model is that I think you can shape it to fit, you definitely, I feel like you want to put your customers' needs up there. I feel like there are some CSAs where it's more about the farmer's needs, but I feel like the balance, putting your customers' needs up high, but then also putting your own needs, trying to have some quality of life as a farmer. And I think for us, we were really motivated to not, we work on Saturdays, but it's not like going to market. So we were motivated to try to not have our Saturdays completely consumed by market. And, this way, Friday is not a hardest day. Monday and Wednesday are big hardest days. And if I actually just went to my niece's second birthday party on the Friday. I left the farm on a Friday. Not something I do often, but it does give, it allows for a little bit more quality of life, I feel like. And just man, the last few months, I have just felt so grateful to not have to worry about cash flow. And, obviously next year is a whole other question, but for the rest of this year, we know that our vegetables have a home, and and I think that's a lot of sort of our philosophy on the CSA. It's wow, you have chosen us as your farmers and have made this incredible commitment to us, and we really want to give you the best experience, the best vegetables, and it just feels like sort of this exchange of gratitude back and forth.
What challenges do you see with your CSA, or what are some of the things that you've overcome, and how has that shaped your CSA so that people starting CSAs maybe this season or next season can maybe avoid some of the pitfalls that you found yourself in?
Yeah, I think the main one is to grow not slowly but thoughtfully, and not take on, kind of to feel like you have down your numbers before you expand. Because with the CSA, it is this commitment, and your members will forgive you if you make small mistakes, but I think crop failure is just a bigger deal with the CSA. And farming organically in the Southeast, we have a lot of crop failure, and that has been our biggest challenge. Is what do you do if and in turn, we're dealing with aphid problems in our tomatoes, and it's oh my God, if we don't have tomatoes, what are we going to do? We're going to have to buy those in from another farm. We're going to lose a ton of money. And so I think that basically you want to grow cautiously and, I think we're still in our fifth year. We're still having growing pains that way, where we think, oh, things are going great, and then something goes wrong. And just to grow cautiously. And I think don't overwhelm people with vegetables. I think that, like, as farmers, we eat a lot of vegetables and we like being generous. And I think that one of the biggest complaints we have heard is, like, I can't keep up, you know? And if vegetables are going down in people's refrigerators, they're not going to join next year. So to be generous, but to not overwhelm people. And
Yeah.
And then I think also just, like, I feel like maybe I talked about this in our full episode, but, like, when people have complaints, to try to not take them too personally and instead see it as an opportunity to, like, build a relationship with that person. So to hear a complaint, to respond with care and concern, to, like, really try to make it up to them, even if you feel like they're being unreasonable. And I've been surprised, like, some of those complaining members have been the ones who've come back because they felt heard and cared for. So I would say that. Those are some of the lessons we've learned.
Right. One that I learned, if I could use this, if I could use the opportunity in me talking to you to talk about a lesson that we learned with CSA is what we always wanted to do was to go above and beyond to meet the customer where they were. In terms of so many add-ons and so many drop-off options.
Don't do that.
Yeah, it's easier to start small and start with something you can reasonably commit to, because every one option you add for a member will add much more work than you think it's going to add.
That's a great one.
Logistically with other farms and farmers, and so make those steps Make those steps very slowly in adding options or choices or products from other farms. It's great to work together, but make sure you have a system down before you go adding to it. That was something we found ourselves in pretty early.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Well, Vera, thank you for taking time out of your busy week and a busy season to enlighten us a little bit on CSAs in general and your CSA and how it's working. I know yours is a model that seems to be working extremely well, and I know that a lot of people are looking at that for the future of their farm.
But yeah, it's special. I mean, like, we have gotten, like, I think more than ever in the last few months, like, just so many incredible notes and emails from members being like, the vegetables have been amazing, but, like, even more just, like, knowing where they're coming from, and, like, you guys have brought so much, like, warmth and love into our home. You know, like, I'm shocked. I'm like, what? Really? Like, here's this person I've never met, and yet, like, we're, helping each other out. It's great.
All right, if you enjoyed that episode, make sure to follow 10 Mother Farm on Instagram and all the places. I know the audio blipped out a couple times, so if you missed anything, let me know and I will try and get that info to you. We'll hook it up with links in the show notes as well. Also, as Jackson mentioned, we did some videos with 10 Mothers with Gordon and Vera and Luke. We'll put the link to those in our show notes as well. We may even put up something at No-Till Growers. We'll see. It's summer. It's crazy. Anyway, you can follow Jackson at Stonehouse Market Farm or us at No-Till Growers. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're getting it, rate and review it. If you appreciate this work and you're still listening and you are not signed up to be a patron at patreon.com/farmerjesse, or you've not just kicked us a couple bucks over at Venmo to at No-Till Growers, think about doing that and keeping the show going and growing. Thanks to Jackson Roulette and Josh Satin. Huge thank you to Hannah Crabtree for all her work behind the scenes. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye.